Hello, welcome. It's lovely to see you, although I can't see you at the moment, but I hope you're watching, and I'm thanking you for those who are watching. And I'm making another video today. I do promise I will make a video soon. I want to do it as soon as I can. Well, I'll start going out there again, and I'll start filming churches, cathedrals, and showing you around them. So far I've done one of those videos, and then things all got messed up because of COVID, and I've kind of just been stuck doing some videos from home. But I do want to do that as soon as possible. These glasses, by the way, are not real. Well, they are real. You can see them there, but they're anti-blue light glasses. They're not glasses for vision, to help me with my vision, but I sometimes wear them when I'm in front of a screen because I do spend quite a bit of time in front of the screen. Anyway, what I want to talk about today is actually a Marian apparition. Given that it's May, the month of Mary, and yes, first of all, depending on when you're watching this, of course, because it's May when I'm filming this, and it's going to be May for quite a while after I film it, but if you're watching it after May, then it won't be May, unless you're watching it the following May, or another May in another year. But right now when I'm filming this, it's May, and so it's the month of Mary, and so we pray the Rosary often. In fact, some people pray the Rosary every day. Doesn't matter if it's May or not, they'll pray it every month and every day. Some people won't, and some of us, I'll say, because I admit I also do not pray the Rosary every single day. But this month I do want to try and pray it every single day. In fact, not just try, I'm going to pray it every single day. I have so far done that. And yeah, before I get on to the actual Marian apparition, so I'm going to say very quickly that for those that it's still relevant to, depending on when you're watching, if you were not aware of the Rosary Marathon that the Pope is doing, where every single day it's done, the Rosary is done from a different country, then I will post a little piece of information underneath this video that gives you all the countries for each of the days of May in 2021, when you can do the where it's going to be, and also where you can find it, and also, you know, if you want to do the Rosary then with those people from that country doing it, then go ahead. Or if you want to just watch it and maybe do the Rosary yourself at another point. I've done a bit of that and a bit of that so far, so it's only been a few days, but I've done where I've watched it and I've done the Rosaries. For example, I did that on the 3rd of May. That's yesterday, or at least according to when I'm filming this. When it was in Poland, I prayed it together with those who were praying. But also sometimes I've done it where I just, for example, on the first day, I think I also prayed it with the Pope. But there'll be days when I don't pray it along with the people doing it, but I'll say the Rosary anyway at some point. Anyway, that's that. So you can find that underneath this video, the information. What I want to talk about is a Marian apparition. Now, I am generally interested in Marian apparitions. I'll admit that. It isn't just because of May that I'm suddenly interested in it and reading about it. I've had a lot of interest in them. I find them fascinating. And the one that I've been reading about quite a lot recently is the apparition that took place in Ecuador. It took place in a place called Quito, Ecuador. And it was about 400 years ago now. And the thing that fascinates me about this apparition is that Mary fought, and as far as I'm aware, this hasn't been done in other apparitions, but I might be wrong. I still need to do a lot of research. But as far as I know, Mary foretold something like so far into the future that she hasn't done that at any other point. She hasn't foretold something to take place almost 400 years later. She usually gives instructions or talks about things. She doesn't necessarily say exactly when they're going to happen, but they tend to happen from what we can make out not too far into the distant future after she's foretold them, if Mary foretells anything. But in this case, she actually gave a time when it would start to happen, what she said would happen, and what she said would happen would be things that are not good, unfortunately. So she spoke to Mother Mariana in Quito, Ecuador. She saw her on 4 separate occasions, and there were some main kind of points that in the 3rd apparition in 1611 that I have looked into. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to read a few of them for you later on in a bit more detail. But first, I'm just going to go through those points kind of in a more basic way as they're listed. I mean, these here are listed in Wikipedia, but to be honest, you can find it on other sites. If you don't find Wikipedia that reliable, there are other websites that will give you more or less the same information, and some of them will go into much detail of what Our Lady, the Virgin Mary, told Mother Mariana. But here they are, the points This is just like a brief kind of bullet point form. So widespread moral corruption. These are things that are going to start taking place, or were said to start taking place after the mid-20th century. And this was said in 1611. So widespread moral corruption, profanation of the sacrament of matrimony, depraved priests who will scandalize the faithful and cause suffering for good priests, unbridled lust which will ensnare many souls, loss of innocence among children and loss of modesty among women, and lack of priestly religious vocations. Now, I mean, some of these things you look at and you just think, oh, this is absolutely happening. This is happening right now. I mean, profanation of the sacrament of matrimony. I mean, they have gone so far to try to destroy the original man and woman marriage sacrament that it couldn't be more obvious. I mean, the strong push and the movement to just wreck what was a magnificent institution. And, people might say, well, to be honest, I mean, in some ways the marriage was being profaned already a long time ago. I mean, divorce, for example. Why was the Anglican Church started? It started because King Henry VIII didn't like the idea that he couldn't get a divorce. So he started his own church and then managed to get a divorce. But I think the way it's being done now is, it's gone so far. I mean, to go from, okay, I don't want to be married to this person anymore, and profaning it in that way, to go to well, marriage doesn't have to be between a man and woman now. It can be between. I'm not going to go into the details now, but you know what I'm talking about. And I've even read things of 3 people being married. I don't know if they're officially recognized by their law, by law as being married, but there are certainly instances in America, for example, where there's polygamous relationships, and it isn't recognized by law, but it's allowed. Of course, there's other countries where polygamous relationships are completely normal, but it isn't just polygamous relationships I'm talking about. Of course, it's this movement, and to be honest, the movement, when I looked into it, it did kind of start to take shape after 1950. This is when people were trying to do this, and it wasn't being allowed still. The law was still rejecting it. Like, they couldn't do it legally, but they were pushing for it and they were fighting for these rights. And slowly, decade by decade, they got it to the point where it's now legal I think it's legal in every state in America. And it's legal in many countries and in European countries. And the push is ongoing. They want to eventually make it legal everywhere. Loss of innocence among children and loss of modesty among young women is also another one that just seems so clearly to be happening now. I mean, again, that coupled with unbridled lust, just kind of put those two things together, immorality, sexual immorality. These things, again, have happened. I mean, there were prostitutes when Jesus was on earth. But to the point now of, I don't think we've had a point, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, where we've had such kind of obvious immodesty just out on the streets, and it's completely normal. Even in times before when, sure, things were going on that was immoral and sexually immoral behind the scenes or in brothels and things, but you didn't bring it out into everyday life, really, And now it's just there. If it's slightly warmer, honestly, most women, younger women, will show a lot, and they don't care. They don't think, well, maybe I should cover up. It's just a completely normal thing. And same with the children. I mean, we had the movie recently that was very controversial, Cuties. It was supposed to be showing how how children are, kind of influenced by bad ideas. But really, while showing that, there was some very graphic stuff in there. I didn't see the movie, but I've seen brief clips of it and heard people talking about it. There's definitely a loss of innocence among young children. Just look at what they wear, look at how they behave. You see little children, little young girls just full of makeup, wearing the kind of things that women wear in the summertime, where they're showing a lot off. So excuse me. So that's happening. The lack of priestly vocations as well. I mean, you could say once again that there's been other moments in time where priests, there's been a lack of vocation, but it's very, very clear now. I mean, you keep reading about it, about how there's problems, about how, in some places they'll ordain one priest in the entire year, and they're really calling for people to come to the priesthood, because in certain places in the world there really is a problem in terms of getting priests. So these are, I'm gonna read a little bit more detail, some of these things now from this nice website that goes into it a little bit more. I mean, there's one sentence here that talks also about the under the appearance of virtue and bad spirited zeal, there'll be like a turn against religion. So you can kind of say we've seen that as well. We've certainly seen the things done under the appearance of virtue. We've seen a lot of ideologies being pushed very strongly with the message that we are doing something good. For abortion, for instance, is done with the message that we're fighting for women's rights. This is a good thing we're doing. It's done under the appearance of virtue, and yet actually what it's doing is calling for a horrendous sin to be allowed and made legal. But there's, for example, here with the matrimony, this is in a bit more detail. So as for the sacrament of matrimony, it says here from the apparition, that symbolizes the union of Christ with his church, it will be attacked and profaned in the fullest sense of the word. It also talks about laws being enacted with the objective of doing away with this sacrament, making it easy for everyone to live in sin, encouraging the procreation of illegitimate children born without the blessing of the church. I don't really need to comment. That's almost the normality now, that a lot of people will have, well, not only get into sexual relations with each other outside of marriage, they'll also have children outside of marriage, and no one even bats an eyelid. No one cares. It isn't considered anything. And there was a time still when that was a taboo. That was like, oh, but now they've, and it's funny with the word taboo, how taboo is used as a negative way of describing kind of almost like things that were considered immoral, and now what we're doing is we're getting rid of taboos. So we're doing something good. These are bad things, taboos. Let's get rid of them. Let's talk about sex, and let's, women can wear what they want and show what they want, and these are all taboos that we're getting rid of. Where actually what the taboos were, and they're not taboos, is they were decency. They were following moral, kind of good morality, and not doing immoral things. And now these are known as taboos, and let's get rid of them and do what we want. So the Christian spirit will rapidly decay, extinguishing the previous light of faith until it reaches the point that there will be an almost total and general corruption of customs. It also said the effects of secular education will increase, which will be one reason for the lack of priestly and religious vocations. Absolutely. The kind of education. People talk about this a lot of the time when they're in those culture fights now that are going on. They talk about how the education system and the media is basically overloading people with a way of thinking. That's why so many people now in this generation think the way they do, because that's what they've been taught to think. And of course, if you've got secular education, of course you're going to get less priests, aren't you? Because if people are brought up in that, then why on earth would they become a priest in the church if they've been kind of taught a bunch of things against what the church teaches, and taught that these are normal and the church is backward? So of course that's contributing. Also said, the sacred sacrament of holy orders will be ridiculed, oppressed, and despised. The demon will try to persecute the ministers of the Lord in every possible way, and he'll labour with cruel and subtle astuteness to deviate them from the spirit of their vocation, corrupting many of them. These corrupted priests who will scandalize the Christian people will incite the hatred of the bad Christians and the enemies of the Roman Catholic Apostolic Church to fall upon all priests. Another thing we're clearly seeing now, and it's been very, very loud in the last decades, about all this sexual abuse going on in the church, about the corruption, the money corruption, all these things, and they're all scandalizing the church. And these bad priests that are in the church, these bad clerics, are ruining, or trying to ruin, or at least maybe not even trying to ruin. Maybe some of them fell, and they were weak and they did this, or some of them maybe they're in there specifically to do it, but they are messing up the reputation of the church, and also the reputation of the good priest, the good clergy, who, I've heard often, when I've been hearing priests giving interviews and talking, how, a priest will say he was walking on the street and somebody yells out paedophile or something, and this is a completely good priest. He's doing what he's supposed to do as a priest, but this person or these people yell this out because they just associate the church with that, and that's again the workings of evil there, to try to destroy the reputation of the church. If you destroy the reputation of the church, then why should people still go to this church who you can't trust? A little bit more. Moreover, in these unhappy times there will be unbridled luxury, which acting thus to snare the rest into sin will conquer innumerable frivolous souls who will be lost. So luxury will cause people to, again, forget about their soul, forget about the church, do whatever you want. We've got great luxury, holidays, fun, all the things, pleasure, just the things that to make me happy. And then from that bullet point, innocence will almost no longer be found in children, nor modesty in women. It does seem like it's a very rare thing now, certainly in women with the modesty. It's very rare you'll see, particularly, as I say, when it's a little bit hotter. Obviously, when it's very cold, people dress up. But when it's hotter, most women you will see will be showing a lot. And little girls, particularly in terms of children, more and more, it's just becoming completely normal. And people see this. I mean, you can talk about this with people who are not necessarily, going to church. You'll still have, if you have an honest conversation, they'll tell you, yeah, we're seeing this. This is absolutely happening. This wasn't how it was. 100 years ago, little children were not walking around dressing like that. Women were not showing off everything, and now they absolutely are. And then, in this supreme moment of need of the church, those who should speak will fall silent. That's to finish that sentence. It's something else people have been saying, that when terrible things are happening, immoralities, certainly when they're happening in the church too, where is that bishop, where is that cardinal speaking out? And this isn't the only apparition that talks about praying for the clergy, praying for priests, and things happening within the church that might not be good. And I'm not saying this as an attack on the church. This isn't a channel to attack the church. I'm part of the church, the Catholic Church, and the church is still ultimately good. And the Holy Spirit is there, and it's guiding it. And even though bad things can happen and the devil tries to get in there, it's still good. So this isn't, I'm not trying to get people to turn away from the Catholic Church or join other little groups. It's just something that, if even Our Lady has said it in an apparition that has been approved by a bishop, then it's something that's going to happen, and it is happening. Now, as far as I'm concerned, if something's been approved by the bishop or by the church, it's happened. So that's it. I'm not going to try to dig into it and think, well, what about this and what about that? But I do still sometimes like to have some ammunition there ready for when somebody who's more skeptic attacks. And one thing that a skeptic person could say is that, well, when was this made public? Because things, you can often say things that, oh yeah, this was foretold in this year, but we've made that public now. So if this was first made public, that these apparitions took place, and written out what Mary said would happen in, say, 1990 or 2000, then a skeptic will say, yeah, okay, why wasn't this made public earlier? Why wasn't this made public before these things happened? Why was it made public after they're happening, or while they're happening? That's something you could say for a skeptic would maybe attack, for example, the Fatima Third apparition and say, well, that was done, that was released in 2000, made public in 2000, and that was after it happened. I mean, firstly, I think, as someone actually said to me correctly when I was looking into that, we want to avoid self-fulfilling prophecies sometimes. If there's been a vision that the Pope has been killed, and you make that public, this is going to happen, there could well be people that then absolutely want to make it happen, and you want to avoid that. And the second thing is that Fatima Third apparition was actually, or that third secret, sorry, was it wasn't like there's still people thinking, was it to do with John Paul II? Because it didn't happen exactly like it's the vision. The vision that Lucia saw is the Pope getting killed with arrows. What happened to John Paul II was he was shot. He almost died, but he made it. Generally, the church recognizes that actually was to do with John Paul II. But if it wasn't exactly the same as the vision. So again, if the church was just going to write this up, in 2000 after the event? Wouldn't they write it in such a way that makes it a bit closer to the event? But anyway, it doesn't matter because I'm not questioning that at all. So the skeptic might say, when was this made public? So then I'm thinking, okay, when was it made public? So that's when I started doing a bit of research. Well, where's there any writing about this? According to research, this was officially approved by the bishop in 1612. So that was actually after the third apparition, because there were 4 apparitions. There was still one more that took place in, I think it was 1634. But this third one was in 1611, and then the bishop, when he looked into that, this is when we get a lot of this kind of what's going to happen stuff. That's when the bishop approved it. So he approves it in 1612, but where do we have any kind of writings from those kind of times to show that this was said to this is going to happen already then? And we do have a book. We have a book. This is when I did a little bit of research into what we have. And the book is The Admirable Life of Mother Mariana, and it's written by Father Manuel Souza Pereira. And there's a volume 1 and a volume 2. Excuse me, I've got some kind of frog in my throat today. Now, Amazon wasn't too helpful when I looked at Amazon, because the books are available there. But the books that we have on Amazon, for example, the American version of Amazon.com, has volumes 1 and 2. It has 1999 and 2005 as the years of publication. And strangely, it has volume 2 published in 1999 and volume 1 in 2005. But it seems that volume 1 was a reprint. And they were both published in 1999, as I'm told by the people that I've contacted in my research who are kind of experts in this area. The Amazon.co.uk, the UK Amazon, is even worse. It shows The Admirable Life of Mother Mariana as being published in 1656. And it doesn't even get Father Manuel Souza Pereira's name correct. It says Manuel. So that's all those dates. I mean, the American one is at least more reliable because it tells you the date of publication of the translated version, because the original was written in Spanish. And it wasn't until I did some more digging and research I managed to get the correct information of the book, The Admirable Life of Mother Mariana, that was published in 1790 by Father Manuel Souza Pereira in Spanish, original, 1790. That is over a century and a half before these things were due to take place. And they very clearly lay out things in that book about these things that I've told you now. And it's a book I want to get. I will kind of go into this again and read that book. I really want to get that book, read it, and just confirm that those things are in there. But I have contacted someone who knows that book, who's read that book, and they have confirmed to me, yes, this is all in that book. So that's for the skeptics, who might say, well, was this actually published anywhere and available at that time? And it was available long before it was due to happen in the from the mid 20th century and onwards. So yeah, I find that really fascinating, and I wanted to just talk about that because I think it's a Marian apparition that really kind of talks about things that happens. Again, as far as I'm aware, there is no other apparition that goes so far ahead. There's the Bible that, of course, tells us things that are going to happen in the world that will be signs of, things coming to an end slowly. But again, we don't know how long. People talk about end times. They say it's end time scenario now. Even if it is, we don't know how long that is. We kind of keep thinking it as a matter of years and it's going to end. End times could last hundreds of years for all we know. But the Bible is probably the one source that will give you things that are going to happen, that you're seeing happening now, and it talks about just things that are going to happen onward from when the Bible was written and onward from when Jesus was here with us. He's here with us now, but when he was here in human form. So yes, that's it. I just wanted to briefly talk about that and read you a little bit about some of that stuff that Our Lady said is going to happen. And really, if you look into it, it is happening. And I do urge you to look into that apparition if you haven't looked into it. It's a very fascinating one. I hadn't looked into it a great deal before. You hear about the kind of the main ones you hear Fatima, Lourdes, and the ones that are approved often, Our Lady of the Miraculous Meadow, Guadalupe, and various ones, Our Lady of La Salette. But you don't sometimes delve into some of the other ones, and there's quite a lot of other ones that are approved by a bishop, and this one is particularly interesting. So anyway, thank you very much for your time. If you're watching this in May, I really do hope you take part in some of the Rosary Marathon, and see you, well, I won't see you, but talk to you again soon.